Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and... well, yeah, this time it's me flying solo again. So, if you've been keeping up with the podcast, you know that recently we've gotten a little off track, a little off schedule, mix of scheduling snafus and me falling sick again, which was very unfortunate. I'm feeling good. I'm back in action now. You have probably listened to our episode on Milk and Cereal, which was a super cool film to talk about. And again, I encourage you, if you haven't seen it for yourself yet, it's on YouTube, it's free, it's easy to just go give that a look, see what you think about it. But we kind of have a commitment that we've always done to, have a episode like every week in October, just because, it's our time. It's the spooky season, Halloween's rapidly approaching, and we just want to make a lot of extra content because it's our favorite time of the year and we love it. Now, obviously, where we have gotten off track from my illness, that has left us in a tight spot. So for this year, we've tried to lighten the load a little bit. You will know that coming in the pipeline, we've got some lighter, more discussion topic episodes. Next up should be us talking about the movies that actually scare us, which will be interesting. And so to fill these off weeks for the month, I figured I would pick back up the old J-Horror Journal, and we will keep rolling right along with that whole project. So if you're new to these, we've only done 2 in the past. It's just me, by myself, ranting and raving about Japanese horror films, which is something that I deeply love and am deeply passionate about, and I hope to share that passion with you. So, no preamble, no build-up or anything like that. I am watching one movie a day in October, going along with the old Horror Gives Back challenge that our friends at Unsung Horrors always do. I'll talk about some of those in our regular episodes as we recap what we've been watching. I don't know if he's been hitting it every day, but I know Jason's going pretty hard too, so we're about it on the viewings as much as we can this month. But we're going to pick up right where this left off last time and talk about the second film in the Death Forest franchise. That is Death Forest 2, also known as Death Forest Forbidden Forest 2, from 2015, directed by Masataka Ichimi. Now, Ichimi, you're not going to really know from anything other than the prior original Death Forest film, and it looks like he has one more movie to his credit, Right Here, Right Now. I wasn't familiar with it. The synopsis kind of had a crime, Yakuza vibe thing going on. You know what? It's on my watch list now, so I'll look into it at some point. Although I'm not going to recap the in-depth background on this franchise. If you want that, go back to the prior film, which we covered in the last in this series. But just to give it a really brief thing, this was an indie video game originally, and it was kind of inspired by and based off of Slender the Eight Pages, which was a very popular indie Slenderman game, and a Japanese developer named Kaz kind of took that formula, revised it a little bit, made it be set in Okigahara, the infamous suicide forest, and used some more J-horror style creatures instead of Slenderman. That surprisingly spawned a movie. That first film was in 2014. It kind of adapted the plot of the game with some extra BS thrown in there. And then, it was, if you go back to that episode, you can get my thoughts on it, but it was decidedly average, The camera wasn't the greatest, it was a little slow in plotting. But, the ending had some real potential, and it was a lot of fun, and it really went, super over the top when everything popped off. So, I was curious to get to this sequel, because everything I've seen online said it's a huge improvement. Which is, when you have a long-running horror franchise, is always something you wonder about, because, sometimes the first film, that's the peak, there you go, that's the best it's ever going to be, and then it's just kind of a slow decline as they try to keep the ball rolling, and other times, it'll surprise you. There'll be a latter sequel that is, as strong as the original, if not better sometimes. So, to start in with this film, when it opens, we pick up a little bit with, the wrap-up of the first film. We're focusing with Kazuki Uchida, who's your main character in the video game, and was kind of the secondary main character of the first film. He's back home, he's in his apartment, and he's kind of reviewing the photos he took in the original film as he explored the titular Death Forest. And just to keep you up to speed on what his whole deal was, he had a sister that had went missing there, was trying to uncover the truth, stumbled on these crazy creatures that exist in the forest, and by happenstance saved our heroine from the first film. And they made like a harrowing escape, racing through the forest on a motorcycle, at which point they used a camera to defend themselves, so they learned that light or flashes of light kind of repulse these entities. So we open with Kazuki again. He's on his phone. He's conferring with like same person from the first film, so we presume it's his editor because he is a journalist. And surprisingly, all the footage and film he took of the experience in the first movie, it's all like blank. Like the photos will be just scenery. The ghost won't be there. And you know, it's that typical like horror film protagonist kind of thing where, you know, he's there, he knew what he saw, he knew what he experienced, but there's no proof. So at the end of the day, what do you have? So he kind of is frustrated with that situation, still wants to get to the bottom of everything, and we kind of fade to meet our new cast. And that new cast is a high school drama club, and they're holding this training camp in the forest at this like abandoned school that's been like condemned, but they still use it for like, you know, school club activities. We'll go out there to do like training camps or like a sports team, that kind of thing. And so yeah, it's just a group of several girls. There's about 4 or 5 of them. You know, none of them that stand out as far as like character or development. They're all very archetypical. You know, there's like the pretty one that's kind of mean to everybody. The one that's like shy and reserved. Pretty much the only one with any kind of depth put into her is one of our leads, which is Oshiro Shirakawa. And she is sort of the head of the drama club. She's the one that's like organizing everything that's going on. And then they also have a school teacher there that's the advisor for the club to kind of just oversee everything and be a point of authority. So when we first meet these people, they're just kind of hanging out in this abandoned school. Has a really cool look, really awesome visuals to it. This is obviously a real ran-down school that they're using as the set. I swear I feel like I've seen it before. I don't know if they used it in one of the Koji Shiraishi, like, Kawasugi films that he did, or like the direct-to-video found footage stuff that he was working on. I just swear I feel like I've seen this in another J-horror film. Just can't quite place it off the top of my head. But, we get a little interaction between Oshiro and the teacher, and there's a little bit of drama going on, and there's a new student that they've kind of forced along to take part in the club activities. Her name is Kizuki, and she's sort of our other protagonist. She's a troubled student. We learn a little later on that she had just transferred to their school because she kind of got kicked out from her other one. There's rumors that she kind of went crazy and attacked another student with a knife. And if we know our Japanese school-based films, we know, of course, bullying and ostracizing people is a rampant plot point. And that's kind of the deal here. Kizuki, no one wants to really fool with her. The teacher's just trying to help her out and get her through school and get her out of there. So she kind of lumped her in on this club activity just to like smooth things over. Oshiro is a bit neutral to her. She kind of just wants to make it work. The rest of the people in the drama club all kind of avoid Kizuki. They don't really like her. They're wondering what her deal is. Kizuki is played by Yuka Kuramochi. She's probably the most famous person in this production. Most of the other characters, their credits include like just the Death Forest films or other sort of low-budgety horror stuff. But Yuka Kuramochi, you may have actually heard of her through other avenues. She is super famous as a model, as an actress, more so I would say in like Japanese television than film, and then also just being like what they call a talent, which is like a TV personality. She's been on a lot of the like variety shows and stuff that are super famous in Japan. She's maybe best known for her modeling. I mean, if you Google her name, I'm sure you can see plenty of photos from different shoots and stuff she's done. She's really great in this film. She has like a very striking face that stands out, and it fits the style of this character that she's like sort of ostracized and othered. Um, Even though, on the face of it, she seems like a pleasant person. So we get a lot of build up here. It's sort of just a slow drama at this point. There's a lot of them practicing the play, debating about different stuff about how it's going to work. The teacher gets them to try to integrate Kizuki. She's very standoffish. They're very standoffish to her. They set up some more of like, Kizuki's character as far as like, they catch her at one point outside smoking and they say something to her about it and she's just like, well, whatever, I don't care. Not a much on the horror front at this point. We get a little tease. There's a scene where like Kizuki's looking in the mirror and then in the background behind her you see for a moment a glimpse of Yoshie. Which if you've forgotten, Yoshie is our kind of titular antagonist of the series. Giant, creepy, floating J-horror ghost head that in the prior film was just kind of drifting around and chomping people in half. Just pretty epic. So things progress pretty slowly. Eventually, night begins to fall. We check back in with Kazuki, and he's reviewing the photographs again from his prior experience. And all of a sudden, all the photos are how he remembered them. They depict the ghosts, they depict the monsters. And he kind of gets this uneasiness and decides that he needs to go back out there and run around in the forest, and maybe he's not just crazy. Maybe there is something to it. Which we really don't see him again till the end, so that's just kind of where he is. Back at the school, we move into some more like, very classic, super fun J-horror tropes. The power goes out, they're cast in darkness, and then we get some long scenes of like, school kids with flashlights running around a creepy abandoned school. Really great atmosphere. And yeah, then just kind of slowly it starts to blend in the actual full-on horror as the various creatures from the Death Forest start to invade this school and come after them. And this is maybe where I should talk about some of the technical aspects on this film. So, compared to the prior one, this one has a much better camera at play. I don't know if they just pumped more budget into it or what, but the visuals are much nicer, much cleaner, not so like dim and hard to see things. A lot of this nighttime in the school stuff, we've got that really good like blue tinted cast to everything that is like a classic of J-horror films. And then the creature effects are much improved. The prior one, they kind of looked like they just filmed a person's head and superimposed it to make Yoshie, which like it didn't look good, but I appreciated it because it kind of matched the like low budgety graphical style of the video game. But here it looks so much better. Like it's really blended into the scene well. It feels like the big head is there. Sometimes it looked like it could have maybe been CG, or I don't know. Sometimes it actually looked like it could have been a big like prop puppet head they made. So there's not a lot of notes or like behind the scenes stuff out there about these films. So I can't be sure what they did, but it actually looked really, really good. And so I was very impressed with that. So yeah, Yoshie stalking the halls. We also get some of the Stalker, which is the other one of the main like central spirits in this franchise. It's sort of like an ashen, pale, skinny humanoid. They've always got razor sharp teeth. Look very crazy, no hair. They're usually like kind of hunched or hulking and kind of zombie-esque, but not quite. But there's a whole slew of those that are also infiltrating the school. So we get a lot of everybody running around, trying to dodge this person, that person. Oshiro, she kind of tries to rally everyone together, but of course there's dissension because nobody likes Kizuki. In the mix of everybody running around, they get separated, and she gets stuck with Kizuki for a while. We kind of get more of her backstory. We learn more of like what she's got going on, what's the deal with her. We discovered that the actual truth of like what had happened at her other school is that it's like another guy, and it seems like he kind of maybe they have a relationship or he's into her, but he's being very pushy, very weird, and he tries to like threaten her with a knife, which leads to them struggling. And in that struggle, he gets cut and then sort of runs out of the classroom and like blames her, frames it like she just jumped him and attacked him. So it's kind of not even really her fault. I mean, I guess there's a gray area there if you want to debate it, but he's a scumbag, so absolutely it's his fault. But because of that, and because there's no real proof to back up her side of the story, that led to her being kicked out. And she still has the knife on her. We get several scenes throughout the film where she's kind of thinking over everything and like playing with the knife, which of course that's going to come into effect later. So, they continue trying to get power back on in the school, get the lights back on. People start getting picked off one by one. I think the first person we find killed is the teacher. There's a whole thing about getting the keys from her to unlock everything in the school. And yeah, it's just, some good classic extra gory kills and what feels like it should be more of like a PG-13 horror film, which is nice because, when Yoshie corners someone, she just, boom, snaps them in half. There's some great kills among the students where, like, the first person to get chomped in half, like, they actually have the prop lower part of her body, and it kind of gets ejected out and is spewing blood everywhere. It's super cool. There's another where, like, Yoshie's hiding in a classroom, and she jumps someone as they open the door, and they're trying to, like, drag her free as she slowly, like, almost like a sawmill, like, drags them in and chops them up, which is pretty cool. We get lots of the stalkers running around, being creepy, looking weird, menacing people. And it really comes down to, like, by the end, there's just 3 people left. There's Oshiro, there's Kazuki, and there's the one who's been the more, like, shy, quiet, reserved one of their little friend group. And, as they're working on getting everything unlocked and escaping and getting away from this place, we get this moment where, like, there's a huge armada of the stalker creatures, and they have Oshiro and Kazuki cornered. They don't really know what they're gonna do. And Kazuki finally just decides to, like, fucking fight back, and starts swinging with the knife. Which is interesting because in the first film, there's no real fighting back. And again, like, owing to the game and then the original American game it was based on, like, combat's not really an option. It's just you have to run, try to survive, hide. But the idea of fighting back's not really on the table. And I do think they handled that well here because, as far as, like, mechanically how it works, she'll stab them, they'll kind of, like, struggle a bit, they'll keel over and die. But then, like, after a little bit, they just get back up again. So I like that it maintained that, like, I guess J-horror flair to it. Like, usually, like, there is no easy solution to the creature or the monster, right? Like, the Ringu, the Grudge, like, the curse is the curse. You can pass it on, but you can't just, like, get rid of it. You can't defeat the ghost somehow. And so I like that they kept that here, because it's like, you have your tools, you have your ways. Yeah, you could kill one of these things, so it's just going to get right back up. You can use light to kind of defend yourself a little bit, as long as you have, the power and the means to keep that up. So it's some nice defined rules where it can be scary, but you do still have options to, like, try to fight back and struggle. But it's never enough that you can just, like, banish the threat entirely. So on her own, Oshiro is getting near to the exit, and she runs back into that last remaining surviving friend. And they throw in a kind of crazy twist where, like, it suggested that she had a run-in with Yoshie, and she got her arm, like, chopped off, but she managed to escape. And at this point, she's just kind of having a breakdown over everything that happened, and she decides that, what should happen is they should all just die together there, as a group, as friends, like they were. So she actually kind of betrays Oshiro and, like, stabs her in the foot. And it's this whole thing to try to make it so she can't run away, so they'll just die together. Pretty dramatic twist, fun little twist to this kind of story, since a lot of it was kind of about the friend group and their relationship and stuff, and kind of suggests maybe there was, like, a little bit of an obsession there between the two of them. But then as they're waylaid by some of the stalkers, Kizuki shows up with the knife, saves the day, gets Oshiro to her feet, and they both kind of book it out of there, leaving the remaining deranged friend to her fate at the hands of the denizens of the Death Forest. So then our final little act is they're fleeing through the forest, they're being chased by Yoshie. They're on foot and they're kind of stumbling because Kizuki kind of has to help Oshiro along. We get some good, like, the vibe of the video game, I would really say, where it's like she's right up on them and they're giving it all they got to keep moving and keep going. And eventually they kind of round the bend, they get near to a road, and they run into Kazuki, who's just been out there searching, looking for stuff. He kind of comes to their rescue. He uses his camera to repulse Yoshie, and it convinces her to like back off and head back in the direction of the school and leave them alone for a little bit. Which is, time enough for him to get them in the car, get them out of there. Another daring escape, and he has saved the day and saved a few more people from the threat of these creatures. And there's a little like coda kind of ending thing where we see Kazuki, he's on the phone again, he's talking to his editor, and it's kind of still that inconclusive thing of like, his photos never seem to turn out right, they never seem to depict the ghosts. We get a little final check-in with our two surviving girls. It's like they're in a hospital, Oshiro's in the bed, and Kazuki's there kind of watching over her. So, nice little ending for them. But our denizens still stalk the forest, and Kazuki continues trying to unravel the mystery. So it's a nice tight 70 minutes, real quick, real easy to get through. More fun than the first one for sure. I think that the kills were a lot better. There was more gore. The camera work in general was just better across the board. So pretty much on a technical level, as far as visuals, music, effects, all of that was just an improvement from the prior one. The acting too, like, even though most of the cast is pretty unknown, or they've only had like lesser roles besides of Yuka Kuramochi as the lead, like, I don't know, they really sold the idea of it being this like drama club that always acts together, and sort of like the different like infighting and little like you're friends but there's stuff about each other that annoys you kind of vibe. They really nailed that and delivered it well, I thought. So super cool, super fun. I think I came in on this one at like a 4-star, 4 out of 5. I believe I gave the original Death Force like a 3, which was even that was like me being generous in the prospects of like, I really like the story of how this came about, that it was like a fan game built off a fan game that then spawned a film that then somehow got a ton of sequels for no reason. And even the premise of this one too, that it's like, okay, the first one, it's like, it's just people exploring the forest and they stumble into this, and that's, kind of the hook of the game, is you're just out there looking for your sister and you stumble into this. And it made me think of like the Friday the 13th franchise, right? Because you have like a core conceit to a franchise and you have to maintain it. So like for Friday the 13th, it is, Camp Crystal Lake. We have to always be set usually around there, or starting from there at least, for a story. And, they get pretty silly in how they try to carry that on, because it's like the first film, it's counselors showing up early to set up for camp. The second one, it's like a random like summer retreat for people that work as camp counselors to like train and practice and whatever. And then we get into stuff like, oh, here's this house that's like near the camp, and they were always finding weird creative ways to extend it and keep it going. So the fact that this one took the stance of like, okay, so we're still in the forest, but here's this abandoned school that's in the area, and we're going to do like a drama club weekend training camp thing. It's just a fun, goofy idea to keep this going. And I'm curious, because, I mean, we're here at Film 2, there's 3 more of these. There's a Part 3, a Part 4, and a Part 5. So I just sort of wonder where it goes from here and how they try to, like, extend this plot. And I wonder if we'll ever go, like, fully beyond the forest, right? Because that again, that falls back into that formula. You stuck with Jason in Crystal Lake long enough, and then finally they send him to Manhattan, and then into space, and who knows where else. But so I just wonder what direction this little franchise will take going forward to try to extend the plot. Also because there's still elements that like we haven't really gotten into from the game, because one of the things the game does have is there's like documents you can collect, and that gives you a little bit of lore. And so actually for all these ghosts, like the Stalker, Yoshie, they actually have like backstories and like some lore about who they were before they were these spirits and how they became that way, and just a little interesting background about everything. And the first film didn't dive into that at all, really. This one didn't dive into that, so I wonder if that's like a back pocket thing they're going to try to pull in one of the later films. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But yeah, so that's Death Forest 2, no need to overcomplicate it, or it's not a deep film, it's not like an artsy film, it's not trying to be, some thought-provoking piece of media, it's just a random low-budget J-horror film based on a video game. So it did what it set out for. It's kind of one of those, what more are you asking for at this point? It's 70 minutes, it's a brisk watch. Didn't feel like it was missing anything, didn't feel like it dragged out too long. It's kind of just right in that pocket where if you're like me and this is your wheelhouse and you love these kind of films, dude, it's just an easy watch. Super easy just to check out. Now, as far as checking it out, that of course is where it's going to get a little difficult. I think I mentioned it in the last episode on these, but there is no official media release for Death Forest or any of the films in its franchise. They're so niche and so low budget, I don't know who would want to pick them up at this point. Obviously I would buy them because of course, but one random person on the internet, that's not always the guarantee you're going to get a return on investment for what you're trying to do. So yeah, these are out there. You can find them online. There's been fan subs made for all the films. I will say they are pretty poor. Like, they read like it's a machine translation, like someone plugged the script into like Google Translate and maybe even did it between a few languages. So if you watch the subs that are usually attached to these, it's very literal translations, and you'll get weird stuff like people's names get translated as like what the name means instead of being a proper name. So it makes it very confusing to follow the plot unless you're very versed in these films, because like the actual story here isn't deep, it isn't complex. If you've seen a lot of J-horror films, you're probably going to follow along just fine and like not miss anything, even despite the subtitles. But it is unfortunate. I think these films are fun. I think they're really cool. I think they deserve a release. They deserve proper translations that people can enjoy. But for now, it's kind of just this weird nebulous thing. So if you dig this kind of stuff, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, go hunting on the high seas of the internet. You can find them. You can check them out. And who knows, maybe hopefully one day I can come back on these and be like, hey, they have a release now. You can actually pick these up. You can enjoy them. You can proudly display them in your collection. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But that is pretty much going to bring us roughly to the end of this little short episode. Again, these don't need to be as long as our usual ones, especially because I don't have anyone fun to bounce off of. But yeah, it's like, it is what it is, and we're definitely going to go through the other films in this series, 3, 4, and 5, see where they go, see how dumb they get. I'm just curious about that 5th one, because that's, pretty deep, and I'm sure they had to make some jumps at that point to keep it going, so curious to see where we end up with that. I don't know, maybe we'll get all the way to Tokyo, perhaps. That could be the climax. We shall see, and it remains to be seen. But yeah, Death Forest 2, pretty fun. More fun than the first one. I think, like, I want to say if you can only watch one, you should start with 2, but, like, 1 does have that setup. You get the hook of everything. You get, like, the background of Kazuki and his missing sister, and it seems like he'll be a returning face throughout the series, so though there is a little recap at the start of the second film, it's super slight. It's like barely a minute long. Not really enough for you to understand what happened in the first film. And again, that first film was really short. I want to say like 65 minutes. So like in 2 hours, you could pretty much watch both of them with just a little change to spare. So, it is what it is. Death Forest. Seek it out. Give it a watch. See what you think about it. Let me know if you've seen these, if you like these, if you dig these. And I would love to hear what you think about Death Forest. So all that being said, look forward to next week when we will be back in full force with Jason in tow, and we will be talking about the movies that actually scare us. Either in the past that have left an impact on us, or that even now still disturb us and leave us a little uneasy. And later in the month, we will be back at it with this whole J-horror journal thing, and, there's no reason not to, go ahead and say we'll just be hitting up Death Forest 3 and seeing where this franchise goes. And then maybe once I polish these off, we can move into some more interesting J-horror territory. But all that said, you have been listening to Genre Exposure. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us on this little side trek into the world of J-horror. And you can hit us up on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Email us at genreexposure@gmail.com. Let us know what you've been watching. Let us know what you've been enjoying. Tell us if you've had any cool, October new discoveries. That's always a fun thing to get into. You stumble on that new film. Maybe it's a new one that's awesome, or maybe you just happen to find, an old film you never watched before. Finally give it a shot, and you're like, dude, I just love this. We love that kind of stuff, and we love to hear about it from you. So get in touch. We love to hear what you're watching. Otherwise, this has been Dustin's J-Horror Journal, and you are listening to Genre Exposure. Goodbye, everyone, and happy Halloween.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.